my God, yes, interesting is the word, because we had a while ago, we had PlayStation raise prices, but only in Europe. And then Xbox raised prices, and then PlayStation raised prices in other parts of the world, and then Nintendo raised prices. And all the time, as all of these price increases kept happening over and over and over everywhere, on this show, we kept saying, okay, so who's next? Who's going to raise the price next? And I think the last holdout, and I think really the reason that they were the last holdout is because they couldn't get any parts at all, and they didn't have any. But the last holdout was Valve, and Valve just raised the price of the Steam Deck like a lot, right? So there's two versions of the deck now, all right? They've got the 512 gig version, which is now $789, and the 1 terabyte version is $949. Jimmy, what was your reaction when this happened?
So every day since they went out of stock, the first thing I do when I go to get a video together is go to steamdeck.com and see if they're in stock, so I can tweet it out or talk about it in a video or whatever. And I scroll down and I'm like, oh, the buy now button's there. And then I look up a little bit and I was like, what? Excuse me? That's insane. So I refreshed it and I was like, no, I guess it's real. And then before I sat down to record, I went and looked at Twitter, and people were losing their minds, going absolutely crazy about it, because it is such a massive increase in the price. So the reaction was shock. And I was like, damn, they finally got by the price increase of RAM and storage. And they waited as long as they possibly could, which, we'll talk about it, probably wasn't the smartest move to just jump it up 300 instead of doing it gradually.
Yeah. And the reason I asked Jimmy is because I saw Paris's reaction. I saw a short. I'm scrolling through, and I saw when your co-host said the price, your eyes went so wide. You were like, what?
Yeah, and it's what Jimmy just said. It was that $300 sticker shock. I'm like, oh, I could not believe it went that high, and to the point. It's obviously just due to everything that's going on in the world right now. I get it, but it's very extreme, especially for how old is Steam Deck now? The OLED is it 3 years old?
Well,
is it 4 years old?
Yeah, OLED is 3. The original is 4.
Yeah, we'll just say 4.5, right? Because they're mostly using the same parts. It's just
right.
It's 4.5 years old, and the chip in it was not the best when it came out. It was middle of the road.
And I think, and I would assume this is where you're going to transition to anyways, it wasn't so much the Steam Deck, it was Steam Machine, the Steam Frame. It's what are these things going to cost if this device, like you're saying, a 4.5-year-old device, the premium side of it is $1,000 now. It's just shocking. It just makes everything very unaffordable.
Yeah, I was I cannot okay, so before we get to I got a bunch of questions that I want to ask you guys, but before we get to those, the first question that I think that I want to ask is without talking about other hardware, just the Steam Deck, do you feel like now you would still recommend that hardware at this price to somebody?
No, absolutely not.
What about you, Jimmy?
No, not at the price. It's tough because in half my brain, I have the Steam Deck and it's my favorite. It's the one I go to. But at this point, this late in the generation, the prices they're charging, looking at where everyone else is at, if you already have a Steam library, I would just hold out for whatever's next at this point. If you're one of these magical people who never bought a handheld, have a big Steam library, don't want to, get a Switch and start a Nintendo library concurrently, I would just wait at this point, because I don't know if I'd recommend anything else either.
That's fair. Okay, so do you think that Valve is, look, we've lived in this era of the prices going up and going up and going up. And for the most part, I always feel like there's some things that when the price goes up, eventually it comes back down. Do you guys think it's ever going to come back down, or do we think this is now the new normal?
I'm hopeful that the prices will go back down, but it is unfortunately starting to seem like a new normal. Because, just forget the Steam Deck for just a second. We obviously see on the console side, we're in an unprecedented era where you were better off buying an Xbox or a PlayStation in 2020 than you are in 2026, when normally the prices go down. And now this has obviously affected Valve, with the Steam Deck and most likely their upcoming devices. So I think it won't be at this high extreme. I think it will come down some, but I think going back to what we consider normal pricing levels, I think those days are long gone.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
I don't know how much these companies care about this at this point, but like, I feel like if you get a not insignificant amount of people to pay these new prices for any of it, lowering the price makes them feel like a sucker. And so what I would think is going to happen is they'll just say it is what it is throughout the rest of this generation, and then try to figure out a way to have the next generation of the Xbox with the Helix, the PS6, Switch is going to stay wherever it is, Steam Deck 2, they'll do whatever they can to make those have a better entry level cost, like starting cost, and say, okay, fresh starting point for everyone who wants to jump on board. And they have like a very morbid benefit to do that, because people are going to look at how this generation played out, where the prices just went up as it went on, and they're going to feel like, panic. They're going to be like, well, the cheapest price I'm ever going to get it is potentially going to be right now at the start. So I'm going to do what I can to be there from the jump. So it's like a benefit to them in a weird, bad way. It's not good. It's just like a weird backhanded benefit.
Well, not only that, but scalpers.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I to add on to that, I don't take credit for this. Someone else said this, but they were like, think of it this way: when this next generation hardware comes out, you can still sell it at this current price because early adopters will pay whatever they want. And to your point, scalpers, we obviously know people will pay an extreme price to get the new thing. So you can launch the devices at these inflated prices, and then you can get it back to where, now we're bringing the price down. So now you look like a hero later in the generation, and more people can adopt it, which not a fan of, but I heard that and I go, wait, yeah, I could totally see that happening.
And then you just, you said something I thought was really interesting. You said people pay for the new hotness. The Steam Deck at $900 and whatever $950 just sold out again.
I know.
Within hours. I made my video, and my screenshots from when I was like editing my video showed that it was still in stock. But then by the time my video posted, I got a bunch of comments saying, nope, it's out of stock. It's gone. They're all gone now.
That's insane.
Yeah. It's where we are.
I tweeted that. I was like, I'm legit shocked, but it went back in stock. So maybe I saw people were running into issues who were trying to buy it, like running into like the cart issue that the controller had. So that's not good either, because it shows a lot of people were lining up to buy it at that price, which again, just galvanizes them probably to just keep prices a little bit high, because they can always fall back on like, it's not our fault.
You guys keep buying it. If you guys wouldn't buy it, maybe we wouldn't raise the price so much. I mean, I know they really don't have a choice. Like every time that we've talked on this show about price range, prices going up, prices getting higher and higher. Always I see in the comments, it's not because of all of the reasons that you're saying. It's because of corporate greed. And I've always kind of fought back against that. I've usually said, well, I mean, at worst, it could be both. But, when you have the AI RAM-pocalypse shortage happening, and then you had the tariffs, and then you tack on top of that the war in Iran, all of these things together mean that making electronics and shipping them is really, really expensive to get things anywhere. And I feel like I don't think that there's a person at Valve that looked at this price and said, yeah, let's raise the price. I'm really happy about raising that price. And I don't think that's true at Sony, and I don't think that's true at Microsoft. I think that they felt like they had to, because otherwise they're going to start losing money. Now, there are people that would say, Well, they're billion-dollar corporations. They could afford to lose some money. So why don't they do that? Well, that's a completely different conversation. If you're asking me to make a I don't know, a wing nut and sell it for less than it cost me to make it, I'm not going to do that.
Right. Yeah. I have to see evidence of it being corporate greed for me to call it corporate greed, right? And there's like clear evidence that RAM and storage are extremely expensive, because if you go to Micro Center right now, like a 2 terabyte SSD used to be what, like $180, $175, and now they're like
if that.
$1,000. Like
Mhm.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I was just on PS Direct looking at the Western Digital, the PlayStation branded ones, which are marked up a little bit just any time of like the world, but they're on sale right now, the 2 terabyte one, for $1,000. And it's like, I know for a fact I paid like 200 for that 4 or 5 years ago. So like that's what I see. So it's like, yeah. And you look at someone like Valve, they make a lot of money off of Steam, but like the hardware team is like what, 10, 20 people max. They are coming into this as a new player. They don't have those relationships built up with the suppliers. They're going for a much lower volume. So you can see how everything just very quickly piles on top of itself for them in a negative way in terms of cost.
Yeah, if you look at Nintendo, they only raised the price of the Switch to $50. But they
Which is
also
awesome.
have these very long-standing relationships with
Right.
suppliers. So
Mhm.
they can buy so much inventory at once. And when you're buying a lot of inventory at once, usually the people who are selling to you are going to be like, oh, well, we can cut you a deal on that because you're buying X million units or whatever.
Exactly.
And so they don't get hit by it as bad. But then you look at somebody like Valve, who the Steam Deck, and we'll talk about the machine in a minute. They're super niche devices. As much as the people who watch this channel are all like, yeah, Steam Deck, Steam machine, like most people see the Steam Deck and they're like, that's a weird looking Nintendo Switch. And like, that's just the way that people think about it. Like, there's so few people that are going to buy these things. So Valve can't do the same thing that Nintendo
Exactly.
can, because if they tried, they'd have a bunch of Steam Decks sitting in inventory and they'd be like, ain't nobody buying them now.